Hello and welcome back. Today we're taking a look at a Nakamichi. Now I've never had a Nakamichi before. They're always expensive. Now this is, I don't. It's not a high-end Nakamichi by any stretch of the imagination. I think I got 30 bucks for this thing for parts, which is still expensive considering the condition it's in. I mean, you can see it's not great. It's pretty worn down. It's got bad scratches all over the body of it, which isn't a big deal. But it's got scratches on the front, on like the acrylic and the front cover and the little buttons too. It's got some scratches, so it's not. It's nothing to write home about. But I mean, if we just judged it entirely by how slowly this thing opened, then I would say it's a top tier deck. Now, we're gonna test it out with my favorite Lionel Richie cassette. Now we can see it's lighting up and it's kind of moving. It's take up reel wasn't taking it up, rewinding it, not really, and fast forwarding it, kind of. So it's the same issue with I think almost every single one of these decks. It's just bad belts. Just the belts go bad over time. They get loose, and you got to replace them. So we're gonna do just that. Now it's always a testament to kind of the brand, I would say, as to how easy it is to do that. Uh, some of these are not easy to fix. Some of them are. I'm gonna spoil it. This one is. It's a dream you had to take apart. So we can see there's one of the belts. So that's kind of the main drive belt. So we can see there's a motor attached to that, and then just the second belt there, which is simply driving off that take reel into the tape counter. That's what it's called. So I'm going to start with taking this front plate off. Now this plate is actually brushed aluminum, which is super nice. It really makes it look like a more modern device. I love that anodized black brushed aluminum look. And this thing's got it. Now I take off this bottom cover and I see some shmoo or something on this, and I thought that might have been something to be concerned about, but it's super hard. I don't know if that's glue or what. Maybe it's just an aspect of when they molded that. I have no idea. But anyways, we can just push these little plastic clips down, and that'll pop out the aluminum plate, and there's a few more on the top, and now we got it removed. And I can finally get this little drawer cover off, I suppose you'd call it. Now I had mentioned that this thing is really easy to take apart. So there's just these two screws in the base of it. So once I get these removed, I can see that this thing just starts wiggling. I mean, it's ready to leave, which is great. So I flip it back over, and we see there's just that one screw left on top, and it's got one of those spring washers on it for some reason. Nothing else has that, so I don't know if that's factory or not. There's some hints within this whole device that make me feel like someone's been in here before. So we can see though, once I got that removed, it slides right out. I just need to get this little grounding clamp out of the way, and the whole thing pops out. Now I've had it before where you can get it out, but then there's like soldered connections to the board itself. But this is not the case. There's, I think, 4 of these connectors, and all of them are completely removable, which is fantastic. All of them are different sizes, so you couldn't put one in the wrong place. But yeah, it just comes right out in one compact little unit. So I'm going to take the faceplate off this so I can get to the reels underneath, because I want to pop those off and clean them, and just, want to see how this thing works too. And so there we can see, just got that one belt for the tape counter. And then it's just a pivoting wheel that's powering these. I do love this dash pot that they have that's making sure it opens nice and slowly. It's almost, I won't even adjust it. It's almost too slow. I'm too impatient for it. So to take these reels off, you just take off this plastic retention thing. I'm not even sure what you call them. It's almost like a press fit piece of plastic. I feel like I'm always about to break them when I remove them. Now we can see that there's these kind of copper springs, and they're quite sticky with old grease and oil. So yeah, we definitely need to remove them to get them cleaned up. And then we can just pull that belt out of there, and we'll replace that in due time. Now this wheel, I believe this is only driving the fast forward and the rewind. and probably the play as well. Now it's just pivoting back and forth, which is it's a pretty cool design. It's actually reminiscent of how reel-to-reels are built, with just wheels that are pivoting between the two sides. So it's a very simple system. Now I did destroy it, trying to remove that rubber wheel, but I do have a replacement for it, so it's all good. Now we saw that head too. The magnetic head is pretty good. It's not too corroded, but on the back side of the cassette mechanism, we got to get the main drive belt off. So that big motor there, so that's connecting to the flywheel, and that flywheel is only connecting to the capstan. So it's a pretty simple system, really. And then we can see there's that separate motor there that's basically, raising and lowering everything, because this thing is an entirely a what do they call them? Soft touch, like digital controls. And then there's that third motor way in the back that's doing the fast forward and rewind. So yeah, it's definitely a high quality mechanism. It's got three large motors in it. Now this belt is super thin, which makes me feel like it's been replaced. Now it's because it doesn't feel that bad. It's not like goo, which these sometimes turn into. But so I want to say that was replaced at some point, just because I can't imagine they would install such a thin belt. That's like I say because it looks like the kind of belt I would put on it, and it's just it's never as good as the factory belts. So I take the flywheel out and I just clean and re-lubricate it. It probably wasn't even necessary to do it, but I always do. And there's the belt kit. So just two belts, really. It's a pretty simple. When you're when you're using three motors on a tape deck, you really don't need that many belts, because you don't need to put the power every which way with different belts. Now it wasn't super easy to put this belt back on, though. I will say that it was kind of a pain, because you had to keep tension on it the whole time, and then I also had to get it really high up on the flywheel, otherwise it would just roll itself off of the motor spindle. But I did get it. And I got some new zip ties on it and got all buttoned back up, and this mechanism's just about finished. So I just need to clean out the front, get that old oil and grease out of there. Next, I'm going to clean up these. They don't look too gross, but sometimes they can have some old grease and oil on the inside, and again, it just gets sticky over time. So I'm trying to shove Q-tip in there, and we can see on the tip that there's a little bit in it. And so this was the take-up reel that we're seeing. So trying to put it back. So we have these metal springs inside. I've never seen this in any other deck. So it's basically like the reel is driven on top of that spring. So it's like it's floating essentially on the shaft when it's in use, which is kind of an interesting design. So there's that replacement rubber wheel. I probably should have removed that whole little thing, because I probably skipped out 4 minutes of fiddling trying to fit that rubber wheel on. I was just glad I didn't break it, because I was using pliers and everything pulling on it, but I did manage to get it on. And now we just got to put the cleaned up supply and take-up reels on. Now those springs, they do have a little tab on one side. It's on the left side for this one, and it has a little recess in the actual body, so they don't rotate. Because I was wondering that. So yeah, they go a very specific way. So I'm glad I noticed that. And then these little plastic retention clips, whatever you'd call them, I just push them in with my finger, and that seems to get it pretty well. Just puts it back on that little recess, and yeah, so that's all done. So pretty straightforward to get that thing working again. Oh, and of course gotta get that faceplate back on. I'm thinking, I don't think there's a light inside of this, which they usually do. So this is definitely a lower end Nakamichi if there's no light on the inside of the like the cassette window area. But again, it may be like one of their cheaper models, but it's still, it's well made. Again, 3 motors in there. That's pretty cool. And then now that that's ready to go, we can just shove it back where it came from. So just screw on top, get these clipped back in. And again, I feel like that all of those wires would be zip tied together from the factory. So it feels like someone's been in there and you know, clipped them all and then didn't put new zip ties on it, because again, that's something I would do. And yeah, it's working great. It's playing, you can see it rewinding, it's fast forwarding, kind of a loud cassette tape. That's not the device making that noise. And you see those VU meters bumping about. So yeah, super easy to fix. Now I'm just going to do kind of a light cleaning around everything. So this piece of acrylic just pops off. And now I have some contact cleaner I'm trying to get in these sliders. So that's the record volume slider, and then the other one is the balance for the recording. And I didn't really want to take the rest of that plastic panel off because it looked like there was a lot of clips, and you always risk breaking those when you try to get those off. But I think I got the contact cleaner in the right spots, so that's good. And then just, yeah, like I said, a light cleaning. It really, again, this thing wasn't that dirty. It was mostly just scratched, and surprisingly, after cleaning it, it's still scratched. Now, I'm curious what you guys think about this. There's those 3 lines on the right side, and then there's no lines on the left. I don't know if that was wore off, and it just is worn off perfectly, or if that's just what it was designed for. I don't know if it just seems like a weird design, but anyways, we can get this metal brushed beautiful aluminum faceplate put back on. And then I realized I had an extra part. But luckily for me, it was just this plastic retention bushing thing on the capstan, and I can install it as is. So that was great. That was the best part to forget to install right there. But we're starting to wrap up. This was nice. I've taken apart quite a few cassette decks at this point, and this was definitely an easier one to take apart. Nakamichi, their reputation, I don't know if it's necessarily for like repairability or just quality in general, but those usually go hand in hand. So I'll probably be on the lookout for a higher end Nakamichi at this point, just to see what those are like, because this really is a bare bones machine. So I'm gonna try to get the time, or the speed adjusted just right, so we get a little potentiometer in the back of that motor. So I'm trying to get that to 440 hertz, because that's what it's supposed to be outputting, and we got it kind of close. And I probably could have done this when it was removed, but I didn't think of it, so I'm just gonna demagnetize that head and then just start wiping down the top plate. So I installed it just to give it a bit of rigidity as I'm wiping it down, but that'll be it. This was super straightforward. This was fun though. I did this in like a day, so that's always great. But as always, I thank you all for watching, and have a nice day.